What's up, guys and gals? Today we're going to work on a Penn 430 SSG. Show you how to break it down, service it, and reassemble it with some tips and tricks along the way. First, we're going to work on the spool. Just going to pop that off by removing that drag knob, backing that up, and pulling that up. To get to the drag stack, we're going to open this spring that's inside here. We're going to push in and up. It's a pretty easy one. There's not too much load on it, but keep your finger over it just in case. You have the metal washer, and then you have the HT100 carbon fiber washer. Under here you have the click spring. We're going to remove that by undoing that screw right there. And what you'll find are a few pieces. You have the click tongue, the screw, and the bushing that the click tongue rides on, plus that spring that's inside there. Alright, so to clean this up, if this is still good, which, yeah, it still is. To clean this up, what I'm going to use is brake cleaner. If you can see that. That's the brand I use, but you can use any brand. I'm going to spray that over it and wipe at some occasions until the liquid itself, when I'm spraying over this, runs clear. Once it runs clear, that means this is cleaned. Leave it alone, let it dry, or soak it in a paper towel, or just rest it on paper towel, excuse me. Let it dry, then once it's dry, we can further process it. Alright, so I will come back to you after I clean this stuff up. I'm just going to use like paper towel, Q-tips, toothbrush, love a toothbrush, and that's probably about it for this section of the reel. So I'll see you guys in a bit. Alright, so the first thing we're going to put back on will be the click spring. We're going to attach it to the click tongue first. You'll notice that there's a bend on top there. That bend will be facing up towards you like this. And I'm just sticking one end of the spring through the eye from the top side. You have this piece, which is the bushing. We're going to set this over it, kind of like so. And we're going to stick this screw inside. After we put some oil on top of that. Now we stick the screw inside of it, and everything is just kind of set up already. Now I'm just going to pick this up. Of course, with gloves on, it's a little bit difficult, or a little bit more difficult, but not impossible. Kind of have it looking like that, just hanging there. Let's add some oil to right here where we're going to put that screw inside. Then we're going to kind of just drop it over it. Like that, and find the screw. Now the spring did come out, but that's fine. I'm not going to tighten it down the entire way yet. The toughest part will be the spring, because it's just kind of tight quarters. So I just hooked that back in, and now I'm going to take my pick and pull that around this post right here. Like that. Now we can tighten the screw down and then test it out to make sure it works, which you'll see that it does. For the drag washer, what we're going to put on it is Cal's drag grease. I'm going to put a light coat on there. Just like so. Drop that in place. Stick our metal washer back over it, and then lock this in. The way to get this this retaining spring back in is just angle one side into the channel it should be in. Hold your finger over it and just kind of work it around, like so. Once you do that, you want to make sure that it's inside that channel. So we're going to just play with it to make sure it drops inside the slot it should be in. Now we'll access the rotor and the bail assembly. To do so, we're going to open this reel up, Gonna turn it over this side. I'm gonna undo the handle before I go any further, just to get it off. Undo those 3 screws right there. Make sure that your reel is in the down position for the shaft, because we're gonna need to access something inside. All those screws are the same size. I'm just gonna pop that off. Now we're gonna undo that screw that's right there. Pull that off. Then we can pull the shaft out. And since all these things are going to be coming out anyhow, we're going to remove them. There's a crosswind gear. Here's the main gear with the bearing on the back side of it. We're not going to do anything with that yet. And now we're going to undo that nut to get this rotor off. It's going to rock as you pull up. Comes off. Now for the rotor and the bail, we're going to undo a few screws so that you can just kind of follow along. A couple screws on this side. That comes off. There's a spring under there. And now we can undo that larger screw. And one under here. Up that comes. And then we have a setup under here that you need to take note of when you open it up. You have that, a bushing on top of it to help support it, so that little piece right there doesn't break off on you. Then you have this, which is the trigger with a spring loaded on under it. Now for the bail wire, we're going to move the line roller. To do that, we're going to undo this screw here, and I'll kind of show you the layout of it. What you have here is a screw with a lock washer underneath it. Leave those intact for now. You have the bail arm, that collar there, and 2 bearings plus a line roller. So there's one, there's a line roller, and here's the other. So looking like this. Alright, so same kind of process to get this cleaned up, and I will come back to you guys to show you how to put it back together. Alright, so the most important thing here would be the line roller. This has a tendency to get frozen on there because no one ever really takes it apart, and these 2 bearings are quite expensive if you have to replace them. If you have to replace one, usually replacing both of them, so it's good to take extra care on this section right here. So what I'll use is some grease, and the goal here is to stop this from getting corroded or frozen inside there if you have to remove it and replace a bearing or something. So grease right there. Let's oil these bearings. And I'm also going to grease inside the line roller, just all over it. Like that. Even inside there where those bearings go. Inside this collar, or this washer. Front side and the back side. And a little bit on the tip of the screw. Alright, so to put it together, we're going to put one of the bearings on first, and we essentially grease this as well. Because again, the goal here is to protect these bearings, but also to protect them from getting frozen on there. Just stick it on there like that. The line roller goes on either way. Just drop it on over it. Same thing for the next bearing. And now we kind of balance this a little bit. We're going to take this before we do that. We're going to take this, stick this through here, like so. Put that through, looking just like that. Then we'll take this cap, put that on top of there, looking like that. And then just balance it and screw it in. I'm not going to go all the way down yet, but I want to get it close to the bottom. So it's about that area. Alright, so on this side, let's go ahead and do this spring here. If you notice on this spring, that's how it looks. Turn it sideways. There's one hooked end. That hooked end right there will be facing, looking like that. So the hooked end will be on top. And this piece has a little notch in it, right there. That'll be going into that hooked end. So the way we're going to do this, take that straight edge, put that inside that little slot right there. Looking just like that. Then taking this piece, putting it over the post, and then rotating this down to where it goes inside that slot on the arm. Now we just take this essentially, rotate it over. And when you do this, you might have to play with the angle to get it to go past this side right here. And now that's set. Now we can take a little bit of grease just around there, add some inside that hole where the screw is going to go, since we're already here. Some along there. And now we're going to take this piece, and the way it's going to set up is looking like that. Looking just like that. Take this bushing, stick it inside, and now you're good to go. All we're going to do here is take this, keep our finger over the bottom piece first, until you get to this point, snap it down, and it should be in place, but you can always double check it by doing this. If it springs back on you, then it's in place. If it doesn't, then you gotta do it over again. And now we can screw this down. Snug it down, and now we can work to the other side. A little bit of grease around these holes, just like on the last side. Could put some right there where that spring is going to go, but what I want to do when I put the spring in is add some grease to points of it. That point right there, and also the other point. One point goes in, the hole that's inside the housing or inside the rotor, and now we take this piece right here. Look for this little small hole. There's a big hole, a larger hole, then a smaller hole next to it. That smaller hole is what we're looking for. So we just kind of rotate it down and screw it in. You are welcome to snug this down the entire way. Now we can cover it up. Alright, so for this side, we're just going to take it, drop it over it, just like that, and then screwing this larger screw in. Then we'll test it out. Looks good. Now we can grease a couple points on here, the bottom side right here, just a little bit, and the top side right there where that washer will go. Okay, so all we have left on the housing would be to remove that top stack, which is the pinion stack. I'll undo these two screws that are on top here. Pull that straight out. You have the bearing cover and the reverse clutch and the bearing beneath that. On the gear side, you have a bearing on the bottom with no bushings. I'm sorry, no No washers. Don't see any there either. And I bring inside the side cover. You can obviously remove the cap as well. But that's pretty much it. In terms of cleaning these things up, I will use everything I told you about before, except for the brake cleaner fluid. I don't really use that too much for these things. But if I were to use a brake cleaner, I would use it on metal gears. I may use it on this as well, but I'd probably try to avoid it because it's kind of a pot metal. But for the anti-reverse clutch, I will show you two things. One is, if you look from one end, you'll see a deep kind of a socket versus a beveled end. That deep socket area end will be going facing down into the housing. And to clean these bearings or these anti-reverse clutches, if it's dirty inside, what I'll do is wipe it around with a Q-tip just to clean any debris that's in there, and then add a few drops of oil, so maybe 2 or 3 drops of oil back inside of it. This one looks pretty good, so I may not end up cleaning it. Alright, so I'll get this cleaned up, show you guys how to put it back together after we come back. Okay, the good news first is that I did find the washers or the shims that were on top of the main gear. Just couldn't see them when we first did it. Okay, so we're going to grease a few places on here. One will be inside here where that bearing sits. Some on top here where that crosswind gear sits. A little bit inside that hole right there. That's where the pinion goes through. And we're going to do a generous portion of grease inside right here. That's where the pinion stack just sits. And we don't want that getting frozen inside there. Even though this is not metal, it can still happen. So, over here for this bearing, we're going to put a light coat on these things. And this I didn't show you that came out. It comes out when you put it back in. We're going to slide it in. I'm not going to do it yet, but just in case I forget. The flat side will be facing down, so you just be going in just like that. Now I'm going to go ahead and oil the bearings, these two and this pinion bearing over here, and let them just kind of sit there. Now I'm going to grease all these gears. And for this, I'm just putting a light coat on this. But I am going to grease the entire surface area of it. So all around there, and on those threads at the top. For the block, kind of the same thing. Oh, that's too much. That's too much. Still too much. Let's get some on here. Some inside that channel right there, and then all around it. Same kind of deal for the crosswind gear. Put a decent amount around that post, then everything else just kind of a light coat. At the end, I'm going to add some grease inside here. That's where the handle goes. And is there anything else I need to do for you guys? No, I think that's it. Oh, I lied to you. Let's do this as well. A little bit of grease there where it goes inside the block. You can put some here if you want as well. Some on the bottom right there. Some at the top. Like that. And we can stick our thrust washer back on there. Alright, now to put this back together, what I'm going to start with is the pinion stack. So we'll take the pinion gear, work that oil in there, drop that straight down, get this sleeve, turn it until it drops in place because it's keyed. Keep the stack looking like that. Now I'm going to kind of hold them together and add some grease on the outside. This is just a double layer of protection against it getting frozen inside there. That's all. Now we can take this and just drop it straight down, turn it so it fits in the slots that it should be in, put the bearing cover on, and then screw it in place. For these screws, when you put them in, since you're going into kind of a graphite material or plastic material, you want to make sure you're following the original grooves that the screws came from. If you create new grooves as you go down, what's going to happen is you're going to open that hole up and then these screws won't fit snugly, and you need that. Now we can take this one, drop that in. And I like doing this one because sometimes I forget it. So let's do that right away. Now at this point we can take our rotor, stick that on top there, stick our washer on top of that. This is keyed also, so make sure it goes over the slot, and then screw it in. And we're going to snug that down. Feels good. Okay, so for this gear, the side that's going down into the housing or into the main housing would be that side there. The gears, both gear sides stay up, so it'll be looking like this. I turned it as I went down because it needs to mesh with the pinion gear. Now we'll take this before we forget it. Remember, the flat side faces down. Stick that in. And now we can take our crosswind gear. We have to turn that a little bit as well to fit inside the meshing or fit inside the gears at the top of the main gear. I won't put those washers on yet. Now I'm going to take this shaft, drop it through. I want the whole side facing up. We're going to turn this a little bit. I want that post on the crosswind gear above the hole that's on this, because notice one is lower than the other. Drop that on, making sure that this slot right here, that slot right there, is over the post. Now I'm going to pull this up and down until I find that hole for it, and then secure it with the screw. Snug, and I pulled it out. Let's just get it back. There we go. Now we can stick on our washers. Stick this bearing on there. Just cover it up and screw it in. Same deal for these screws. They are going into a plastic or a graphite kind of housing. You want to find the original grooves to go in. You do not want to create new grooves for these to go down into. Alright, now we can put the cap on. And then work on the handle. To open this handle up, we're going to undo that screw that's right there. Sometimes it comes out, sometimes it doesn't. If it doesn't come out, don't worry that much about it. But if it does come out, I like to take it out so I can secure it for the future. We're going to wipe this down. I'll do this all real time with you guys because it won't take very long. This I don't believe comes out. Notice what I'm wiping down are the threads and this back side over here, and also that screw and the threads on the screw. The reason you do that is because we're going to add some grease to it, so we don't want any contaminants on it. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is add some grease inside this channel. Kind of like that. Some along the larger size hole to help it just kind of transfer over. Some here inside the hole. Some on that screw right there. And we're going to grease the entire pin or pivot screw. Just like that. Now we're just going to drop it back in and screw it together. This pin goes through the larger hole first, then screws into the other side. Now we can go ahead and oil inside here and right there. Kind of work that in. And now we can wipe off any excess. Alright, let's put this reel together and see how it works. I put the cap in the wrong spot, it looks like. Stick this handle in. Put a little bit of grease on top here where that drag knob is going to go or go onto. We heard the clicker, that worked, so let's test the drag out and see how that works. Works nicely. The line roller we know works, but we'll do it just to make sure. There it is. The crank feels good. Anti-reverse works well. Good. Bail flip works well as well. Alright guys, thanks for watching. If you found the video useful, please hit the thumbs up button. If you appreciate content like this, consider subscribing to the channel and spreading the word about it as well. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.